That's the result of moral relativism. There is chaos in the culture, and nobody knows how to act anymore. Nobody knows what's right or what's wrong, and if anything goes, then everything goes. So the truth that sets you free is not that you can do whatever you want to do. The truth that sets you free is that there is a truth. There is the truth. Our Creator created order within His creation. And we as creatures of that created order, fundamentally, deep down within us, know what's right and what's wrong. Especially when we consult His handbook. We discover very quickly how we're to relate to each other, right? I mean, the 10 Commandments. The first one's focused on our relationship with God. The rest of them focused on our relationship with each other so that our relationships might be a blessing to us and to others. And we tease ourselves if we believe that you can do whatever you want to do, I can do whatever I want to do, and that culture will survive. That is a lie. Do you know what? That's not the part that scares me. That's not the part that I'm worried about. There's something even more dangerous inherent in all this. Jesus goes on, or this story with Jesus and these Jews goes on. They answered him, "We are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free?" Friends, I am so flabbergasted at the response of these Jews that I can't even put it into words. You don't have to be a great historian of the Old Testament, but do you ever remember a guy by the name of Moses? You remember Moses? Yeah? Do you kind of remember what God called him to do when the burning bush thing? You remember that? He said, "I want you to go to Pharaoh," and what was the direct words that he was to use to Pharaoh? Pharaoh, "Set my people free." Why? They were slaves for over 400 years in Egypt, building those pyramids. We've never been slaves of anybody. Even as they speak these words, guess what? The boot of the Roman Empire is firmly implanted in their throats. And they can't do anything without consulting the Roman leadership. They are under the bondage and the power of the Roman Empire. We've never been slaves to anybody. You're just totally oblivious. Huh? Totally unaware of the truth. The scary question is this. If you buy into this moral relativism, this postmodernism, if you buy into it and say, rules, that you can kind of have your rules and I can kind of have my rules, and then you start to discover, that doesn't really work quite so well because the fabric of society just starts fraying out at the edges, and so, you kind of need some basic laws. Do you know how they become established if you don't believe there are any absolutes? Have you ever pondered how laws and morals come into place when you give up on the idea that there is a creator who created order within the system and that there is absolutes? It boils down to who has the most power. The one who has the most power gets to say what is right and what is wrong. And so we as Americans, what are we obsessed with? Polls, right? We're reading polls right and left. You read a poll, the average American male washes his hair 3 times a week. Oh, then that is how many times I'm to wash my hair. We live and breathe polls. Even our presidents at times, they live and breathe polls. They determine the policy by whatever the whim or the will of the people is, rather than figuring out what is the truth, what is right and what is wrong. Back in Germany, a long time ago, you're thinking I'm going to the Reformation. I'm not. This little Austrian painter by the name of Adolf Hitler rose to power, and with his power decreed a moral system within that country, and millions of people died. Mao Zedong in China did the same thing. 70 million people died because they didn't fit his moral ideas. That's scary, folks. That if you deny that there is any absolute truths in this world, that the culture will be strategized and led by the one who has the most power, pray that the person who is in power is benevolent. Even in our country, the land of the home, I am tired. The land of the free, home of the brave, huh? This could happen. But you know what? That's not even what scares me. That's not even what I'm really nervous about within this text. What I'm really nervous about is this last section. Jesus replied when they said, we've never been slaves to anybody. Jesus replied, I tell you the truth. Everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now, a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. We've moved out of the realm of culture and governance. We've moved right into the realm of eternal salvation. If we buy into this postmodernism, if we buy into this moral relativity, then you know what? Then sin, you can kind of decide that it's not sin anymore. I hate to go here, but you can vote in assembly that a sin is no longer a sin anymore. My friends, if that was true, don't you think God would have figured that out? Rather than sending His Son to die on the cross? Our sin is a reality, and the reality is that we are slaves to our sin. And if we are slaves to sin, then we have no permanent place, no eternal place resting for us. We have no hope. We are damned, my friends. The wages of sin is death, and that is the truth. And the greatest danger going on right now in our world is that we begin to believe in this moral relativism that sin can come and go with our whims, and it is not true. And our eternal salvation hangs in the balance. Jesus Christ, who called Himself the truth, hung on a cross and died out of love for you, out of a desire that you might not be a slave to sin, but that you might be set free, that you might be in a permanent home with God forever.